Welcome to Channel 77 viewers and to our studio audience tonight. Welcome to Candidates Night on behalf of the Tenafly Rotary Club. Yes, Tenafly does have a Rotary Club. It's a project we launched about 5 years ago to answer that question so that people will know. As Rotarians, we're part of an organization that has approximately 2.5 million members around the world. And our mission is world peace, and our motto is service before self. Service before self means we support the worldwide efforts of the Rotarians, but also we help our local community in any way we can. And we felt there was no better way to help before the election is to give the candidates an opportunity to talk to the people and for the people to ask questions and know the candidates better before the election. With the participation of the League of Women Voters, we're pleased to have Sophie Hyman as the moderator. Many of you know Sophie from her 8 years as mayor of our neighboring town, Closter. I always thought it was Closter, but it's Closter. A word about our procedures. The moderator has a set of questions prepared by Rotary Club members. As time permits, we will accept questions called in from the Channel 77 viewers and written questions from the studio audience. If by chance you didn't get to write your question, you're free to come up, use this microphone, and ask a question of any of the candidates you'd like. Immediately after the event, stay tuned for a brief video introducing the 3 candidates to the Board of Education. They are not here to answer questions tonight because they're all 3 unopposed. And of course, remember to vote on November 7th. In addition to the Council and Board of Education members, we will be electing our next governor, all state senators and assembly members, and 3 Bergen County freeholders. Tell your friends to vote, and if that takes place, we will have accomplished what we wanted to do tonight. Always end every speech with, if you're interested in becoming a Rotarian, we meet every Thursday at 12:15 at the Clinton Inn. It's now my pleasure to turn the meeting over to our moderator, Sophie Hyman.
Thank you. There are 3 candidates for 2 positions, and on your right is Ed Maslish, who is the Republican candidate. The other 2 candidates are Democratic candidates. In the middle is Lauren Dayton, and on the left is Jeff Grossman. They will tell you more about themselves in their opening remarks, and we will start with Ed Maslish. And he has 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. I'm Ed Maslish, and I'm running for Tenafly Borough Council. I'm running because Tenafly is a great town, and I want to work to help keep Tenafly a great town. Excuse me. The state Supreme Court and Democrats in Trenton are pursuing some policies that threaten your home values, your property values, and our community here in Tenafly. We need to protect the suburbs. We need to protect a suburban town like Tenafly. And I'm running because I want to be the voice that speaks up for the suburban towns like Tenafly. Last January, the state Supreme Court issued a ruling on low-income housing that's going to lead to a lot of low-income housing being pushed into our community. The Democrats in Trenton are all for that. My position is that your property values will not be benefited if we bring in a lot of low-income housing to this town. We don't want low-income housing to our right, to our left. We know we have to do it under the state constitution and the state Supreme Court rulings as they exist, but we don't want to invite more of it, and we need a voice that's willing to speak up for it. I'm willing to be that voice, and I've worked with Assemblyman Holly Schapese, who's a leader in the state assembly on this issue. There's also the issue of school funding, which the state Supreme Court and the Democrats are also funneling all of the state education budget to towns like towns like Camden and Newark and Patterson, and away from suburban towns like Tenafly. And together with the property tax cap that's expiring, our property taxes are going to skyrocket, and that's not going to lead, I'm sorry, the microphone's not working. That's going to lead to your property values going down, not up. In closing, I just want to say the town council is now 6-0. 6 Democrats, no Republicans. We need some diversity. We need a different voice. I want to be that voice. We don't need to make Tenafly great again because Tenafly is a great town. I want to work with you to keep it great. I'm asking for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will give her introduction, Lauren Dayton.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Dayton. Thank you for the opportunity to come tonight. I have lived in Tenafly now for 5 years with my husband, Jeff, and our 2 daughters, Emily and Abby. My family is very active in our community, in our schools. We attend the recreational sports, use our library, attend the community events. I volunteer my time at my children's schools. I'm on our HSA as the secretary at Malm Elementary and have been for the past 2 years. I'm also active in our current synagogue at Temple Sinai here in Tenafly as well. Before coming out to Tenafly, I graduated from Cornell University with a degree in government and economics, then went on to law school at Emory School of Law in Atlanta. I currently practice law here in New Jersey and New York, and I have a solo practitioner business here in the community, so I could take care of my kids as well. And before I came out to Tenafly, I was always involved in government and policy, and I've studied it for many, many years. I would bring to this council seat the insight of a resident with a younger family, someone who has invested long-term in this community. I moved to this town to form roots for myself and my family, as many of you have done, and I understand what makes this town attractive to our current residents and to prospective home buyers. I would like to maintain our home values. Tenafly cannot afford to become complacent. We as a community need to be invested in the health of our Tenafly municipality. Our mayor and our council have enjoyed enormous success in the past few years, and now we need to use this time to set new goals, such as the Greenway Rails to Trails program and ways to revitalize our downtown. Tenafly residents also need the time to connect, to interact, and support each other. In this day and age, we need to come out in our community nights, come together to watch our children on the field.
Thank you, Ms.
fields.
Dayton.
Okay, thank you.
Our next candidate is Jeff Grossman.
Thank you, members of the Rotary, for hosting this discussion, Mayor Hyman for moderating, and the residents of Tenafly, both here and at home, for watching. I am Jeff Grossman. I was born and raised in Tenafly. I'm not old enough to have been here when the Dutch first settled, but I do remember important events such as when we purchased the Green Acres site on the East Hill. Currently, I teach middle school social studies. Before being an educator, I spent 10 years as Bronx Deputy Borough Chief for the New York City Law Department in charge of pretrial operations. Prior to that, I worked in their Queens office, and I also spent several years specializing in housing programs. I have a BA, an MA, a JD, and I took graduate courses at Fairlead to get my teaching certificate. In other words, I'm a lifelong learner and just can't seem to get away from school. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Tenafly. I attended Smith School, TMS, and graduated from THS. My wife, Shell, and I moved into our current house in 2000, and our sons went to Smith and graduated THS. I've been active in our community since returning. I have served on the Tenafly Little League Board of Directors for about 7 years. I have coached baseball. I served as the division director and secretary for Little League. I was a den leader at various times when my sons were Cub Scouts. I was membership chair for PAC 86. Since 2006, I have served on the Tenafly Zoning Board and have been elected chair the last 5 years. I'm running because I want to continue to give back to the community where I grew up, where we have raised our family. I want to make sure Tenafly remains attractive to future generations, to make sure it will be known for its high level of service and small-town feel, a community where future generations will say, that's where I want to raise my family, a community where they will be able to afford to live while receiving quality services, a community they will continue to call home.
Thank you. And now we're going to go on to the questions. The Rotarians have developed some questions that they feel cover most of the ground that all of you are interested in. But in addition to those questions, you can write questions down that I will pass upon. And of course, they are call-in questions as well. So now, I would like to remind the candidates that you have 2 minutes to answer each question, and if the occasion arises, you may also rebut for 2 minutes. The first question is, and I will ask Lauren to answer that question first. Since you moved to Tenafly, how have you been involved in the community? And I guess you answered a lot of that already, didn't you? Is there anything that you want to add to that?
Well, I would like to add that I have been elected to our District 9 committee seat, and in that position, as well as the other things I've done before, I get to interact with our residents. I get to hear their voices and their concerns and bring them to our council and be part of that process. And I do want to represent all residents here. I think we are an accepting and a diverse community, and each one of us has their own issues. And our council serves to represent you as the public and our residents and our community. And I have had that opportunity and like to continue that opportunity as councilwoman.
Thank you. Mr. Grossman.
Well, I think I covered a lot of what I've done, but I want to talk a little bit about the Board of Adjustments, where I've been for the last 10 years. And I'm proud that the board we have represents a diverse interest of our community. It crosses political parties, it crosses different viewpoints, both east and west sides of Tenafly, which has always been an issue, that because there are some differences in issues with zoning in the different parts of town. And it has been a great experience to hear the differing views, to work with these people. I've grown to have great respect for them, and hopefully they've come to respect me as chair. I guess I've done an okay job because they keep re-electing me. If I wasn't doing that job, I have a feeling they would have booted me long ago. But they are a great group, and that represents what Tenafly is and should continue to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maslish?
I think my biggest participation in the community is as a sports dad. My son is 12 years old. He plays football, he plays lacrosse, he plays baseball, he plays basketball. I go to all of his games, I go to all the events, I meet all the parents, I meet all the coaches. I participate with people, I talk with people, I listen with people. I try and become a part of the community. As far as government goes, unlike Jeff, I haven't been elected to anything, but I can tell everybody who's watching that I've been attending council meetings. I've been trying to learn what we need to do and what a councilman does in the role of councilman. I've tried to learn what issues come before the council and how the council deals with things. And I'm a very smart guy. I went to the Bronx High School of Science. I have almost as many degrees as Jeff, but not quite as many. And I love Tenafly. I love being here, and this is my home, and I want to fight for you, and I want to, do the best that I can for you and for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there'll be a little bit more of a challenge with question number 2. The Tenafly Swim Club closed a few years ago. The borough owns the land the swim club was built on. How do you see the borough using this asset? And I'll ask Mr. Grossman first.
I am so glad you asked, because I used to be a member of that swim club for many years and was very sorry when it closed down. I think it's one of the things that we have to see what it can do to generate revenues. The one problem we have with that piece of property is it's along Tenafly Brook, and there are some limitations as to what can be developed within a certain number of feet of the brook. It also is alongside a small stream that used to come from Penatone, which was a chemical plant. And my guess is that there are some chemicals that probably have leached into the soil, which will also make it difficult in the long run to develop it. One of the things that I had floated out there was maybe putting the dog park there. That did not float too far because there were some other sites that people had already considered. Another possibility is if we do develop the greenway, we might be able to develop it as something, as an appendix or an adjunct to the greenway, as perhaps a farmer's market on Sundays or some sort of a art show place on a given day where we could use it to encourage use of the greenway and to utilize the property.
Thank you. Mr. Maslish.
Well, and I suspect this is going to be a theme of some of my comments tonight. I'm not running for emperor, and I'm not running for mayor. I don't think that it's going to be my job to sit here tonight and tell you what I'm going to do with that land or tell you what you should do with that land. I think as a member of the council, it's going to be my job to weigh proposals, to listen, to respond to people, and to see what possibilities are out there. I'm not going to sit here tonight and tell you what I think should be done or might be done. Obviously, it's an asset. Obviously, it's something that should be developed and used in some way, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've got every answer and that you better take my answer, and my answer, it's my way or the highway. I think that the members of the council need to work with the community and listen to the people in the community and talk to people and see what they want and see how they want to deal with it. And that's what I'll do if I'm elected. Thank you.
I don't think that anyone wants to rebut that particular question. Am I correct?
I didn't have a chance to talk yet,
Oh, I'm
Mayor.
sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My answer is very similar to Jeff's. We're very like-minded in this sense. I do think it was a green space before. I'd like to keep it and remain as a green space going forward, very similarly. I do think that having a cultural center, a green space, a garden, a community center, a farmer's market would be an ideal use of that property if all environmental concerns aside can be overcome. And I do think that that alone will help enhance our property values. People come to Tenafly for their green spaces. It's one of our unique characteristics that we have these spaces where our community can come together and use it. And I think the swim club brought people together, and it is a loss of our to our community that it no longer is there. And if we can't build a similar type swim club, I'd like to see something in which all of our residents can use that space.
Okay, now we're ready for rebuts if anyone wants to rebut that. And if not, I'll go on to the next question. The council spends a third of the year developing and approving the borough budget. Is there any part of the budget process that you think is most important and why? Mr. Maslish.
Absolutely. I think the most important part of the budget process is making sure that property taxes don't rise or don't rise any more than they absolutely have to. I think we have to look at every item in the budget and decide, like every family who has to decide whether something is a priority item or not a priority item. I have a 12-year-old son. I told you he plays sports in the community. He's played musical instruments. There have been times when we had to cut back and we couldn't give him stuff. I'm not looking to cut back on the community. We have the most wonderful municipal services in this town, and if I'm elected, I'm going to look to keep as many of them as I can and make them as excellent and as good as they can. But I'm not going to try and raise your taxes. I'm not going to try and break your bank. I think that when we're talking about a budget process, we need to look at every item, make sure it's something that we really need, that it's being done the most efficient way, and that it's something that the people really want and that people prioritize. And as a member of the council, I think it's important that we prioritize the spending that we do, and always keep in mind that other people are paying property taxes based on our decisions, and we need to make sure that we keep that in mind and that we're working to keep our property tax bills as reasonable as possible. Thank you.
Ms. Witt. I think it's time for Ms. Dayton.
Okay, thank you. I think the important part about our budget is that we continue to offer the level of service that our municipality has offered for the past few years. One of the things I think that is the most important is that our community offers all of these services that some surrounding communities, maybe with lower taxes, don't have, such as Alpine. Our municipal budget is only about 1/4 of all total taxes collected. And within that, you have to remember, there's county, there's salary and pensions, and the rest of our budget goes towards our vital services that are of the highest quality, our police, our DPW, our fire, our green spaces. And so within staying with the budget without raising it extraordinary and within staying with the state caps, I think we can continue to offer these services. And to me, when I would sit down with our budget in the future, that would be my goal, to make sure our residents and their homes and their properties are taken care of.
Mr. Grossman?
Now, it's interesting, as a teacher, I have to say that there's not a lot I have agreed with our current governor about. He has not been very favorable to teachers, but the one thing as a taxpayer here in Tenafly that has been useful is the 2% cap. It has forced municipalities to look hard at budgets, to not just think of things as a blank check, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. Looking at it as a community, it is not a blank check to increase. And so I think one of the things that is the important part, to answer your question, of the budgetary process is holding the different commissions, agencies, parts of government, the different departments accountable to hold to those low increases and come under them. I mean, you don't have to go to 2%. This year they went to 1.6%. Hopefully we will get to 0%. That is a great goal, and that's what takes 1/3 of the year to develop a budget, is to try and keep within that. So,
Does anyone want to rebut the comments of one of your co-candidates? No. Then we will go back to open space. My next question is, do you support a Tenafly dog park? And if so, how should it be paid for? Ms. Dayton.
I am an animal lover. I absolutely support a Tenafly dog park. I think we're all in agreement. At the moment, our current council has done an extraordinary job of finding a space after investigating and reaching out to residents and finding what they need. And our dog park space has been set by our council. And I thank them for that work. And the space will be near the current fire and police station and Borough Hall on that side of the road. And to fund this process, they have already begun the process of looking at sponsorships and promotions to share the cost. And I'm not sure if they went out for a municipal bond, but I believe it's already been considered by our council. So if I were to be elected onto this council, I would support these efforts and continue them with our current council members. And I hope that many people come out, come walk their dogs through our town, come grab a cup of coffee, stop for lunch, and enjoy the wonderful town that we have here with their dogs.
Mr. Grossman.
there's very little I can add to that. Very in favor of a dog park. We're proud that there's pet rescue has been a part of the community, and that there is wolf stock held here annually, and it's a great thing. And one of the advantages of where the dog park is proposed to be placed is not that far from where wolf stock's currently held. And so that would be a nice thing to facilitate the use. I do agree that we need to look for a certain amount of community, private co-sponsorship in this, because there are a lot of businesses around that certainly take, are in business because of the number of dogs in town today.
Anytime.
And they should be sponsoring this. It's to their benefit as well as to the community. Thank you.
Ms. Mayor? I don't know, is my time running?
Mr. Maslis?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that my time wasn't running. Of course, we all love animals, we all love dogs. My approach is not to just look at things in the abstract, is that a good thing? You can't just look and see, is that a good thing, so we should spend on it? Everything that we spend on is funded through property taxes. Yes, I'd love to have a dog park, but I'd also like to see all the costs involved. I'd like to see if there's any liability issues that are involved. I'd like to talk to the property owners that are next to where the dog park is going to be located. I spoke with the mayor for an extended meeting, and he and I both agreed that a dog park sounds like a good idea, and we both like it. And the mayor has dogs, and he's got beautiful dogs in his house. I would love to be able to say we're going to do a dog park. That would be my goal, but I can't make that promise. I can't say that that's the goal until I see all the costs and see what the impact on property taxes is going to be. That's my first obligation, to protect the community and to protect property values in this town and to keep property taxes as reasonable and as low as we can possibly keep them. So dog park, yes. Property taxes, more important.
Does anyone want to rebut any part of that? No. I would like to speak to the audience at home and suggest that you can call in. The number is on your screen, and we welcome any calls, and we will ask the candidates those questions. The next question that was prepared by the Rotarians is, the state, TNEC, and other communities are considering instituting a charge for bags. Should shoppers pay for plastic bags in Tenafly stores? Mr. Masley.
Should shoppers pay for bags at Tenafly stores? I think that's a decision that the stores should make, not the council. I think that people should be free to shop where they want to shop. Businesses should be free to sell as they want to sell. If the business wants to charge an extra premium for plastic bags or give a discount if you bring in your own bags, I think that's wonderful. As I said earlier, I am not running to become emperor. I am not looking to tell people what to do. I'm not looking to tell businesses what to do. I believe in freedom, and individual liberty and individual rights. And if it's a good idea, let's do it through persuasion. Let's talk to people. You know, if it's really in Stop and Shop's interest to charge more for a certain kind of bag, persuade them, explain it to them. I don't think it's the job of the council to order people around. I think it's the job of the council to protect the community and to protect our freedom, and that's my position on that.
Thank you. Ms. Dayton.
I do not believe our town should charge for bags, but I am not against having the residents speak up on this issue and have them make that decision. I do believe in encouraging stores to offer a reusable bag. Myself and Jeff on our joint campaign have reusable bags. We would like to encourage shoppers, of course, to be green. But I do also want to say that we have an environmental commission here in our town that encourages recycling. So if there are reusable bags, that's one way to get around this. Another way is to encourage people who have the plastic bags to come recycle them and to make it easier for our residents to recycle them. So you have, forgot your reusable bag at the grocery store, you came home with 5 plastic bags. I can drop them off at the recycling bin. I know they will be properly handled and hopefully, put into something that can be reused in another sense, even if it's just art installation. But I would encourage our residents to be green throughout our town, and I don't believe that we should be forcing the stores to give that up. I do believe that is a business decision.
Thank you. Mr. Grossman?
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned TNEC, because TNEC did have a law that they recently enacted, and it has not gone well. The stores have balked, understandably so, and they've made it so that it's going to take a year at a minimum to implement. I also agree that you need to do it as a voluntary effort, education of the stores, why plastic bags aren't that great for the environment, but not to force them. And we should learn the lessons from what happened in TNEC. As to Ms. Dayton's point about the bags, if anybody would like one of those bags, please see one of us. We will arrange for you to get a bag that you can reuse and will not be cluttering the environment, and is a very pretty color blue.
Anyone want to rebut any of those comments? No? Then we'll go on to the next question. Historic homes and buildings help define our community's past. The Historic Preservation Commission rigorously assesses potential buildings for landmark designation, but the final decision is the council's. What are your thoughts regarding the balance between preserving Tenafly's history and property owners' rights? Mr. Grossman?
That's a tough one for me, because as someone who teaches social studies, I have a great respect for historic properties. But not every home has a historic significance. There are only a few that are truly significant historically. And I think in those cases, with the homeowner's understanding, discussions, we have a Historic Preservation Commission in town which listens and invites comments from the homeowner. I think it's a decision that should not be made lightly. There are properties across this county that have been destroyed, and it's a tragedy. So that's where I come across the hard point. I do not like homeowners to be in a bind, but the worst thing is that they're buying a historic property. They know it's something of significance to the community, and they become caretakers for it. I mean, we have the Elizabeth Cady Stanton house in Tenafly, and had that been torn down at some point, that would be a tragic loss to not just the community, but to our country. So I know I'm not giving, and to borrow a line from Mr. Maslish, I'm not running for emperor, but I do struggle with this issue. Thank you.
Mr. Maslick?
Thank you. I think this is one of the toughest questions that'll come before any of us on the council. I think Jeff is right that it's something to struggle with, and with good reason, because we have competing interests here. On the one hand, I believe in freedom. I believe in you buy a house, it's your house. On the other hand, it's also the job of the council to protect and preserve our community. Everybody who buys a house in Tenafly is buying into our community, and it's the job of the council to make sure that those investments are protected. Part of the charm of the town is that we do have some historic buildings, but I think ultimately the Preservation Committee has to be very circumspect about telling people what to do and about prohibiting any sort of changes or making that designation. I'm not opposed to it being used, but I am for it being used sparingly and with good reason. And I think that it's just something that we need to be careful about, because people's lives change based on that designation. And we should never take it lightly when we make a decision that impacts somebody's life. The person who bought that house paid real money for that house, has real value for them. And how a historic designation impacts their lives and their wealth and their property is an important consideration, and it's something that would have to be, in my opinion, it's something the council should be very vigilant about any time that issue comes before the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone want to? I miss you all the time.
That's okay.
Ms. Dayton.
Thank you. So my husband and I actually own a historic house. We have a picture of our home standing in 1897. And when we were looking for homes here in Tenafly, one of the things that attracted us to this community was that these homes still stood. And we feel very responsible for this historic home. We haven't destroyed its original elements. They have been around much longer than we have. My house stands for 140 years, still standing, and we'd like it to remain standing. That being said, I do believe that this issue has to be on a case-by-case basis. I think that the Historic Preservation Commission is a wonderful thing to have in town. A lot of what their efforts are to educate homeowners to say, this element in your home, this Dutch construction, this gas lighting, it's not around anymore. And if you preserve it, somebody can learn from it and see it, and it can be part of our town and our community's charm. And we encourage you not to destroy it. That being said, not every house should stand from 100 years ago, and if it did, our community would never move forward. So I would consider each case individually. I would think the homeowners should work with and be educated by our Historic Preservation Commission and make a joint decision, and then bring that, at least the investigation that they've done, to the council for consideration.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add anything to that? If not, before I go on to the final question from the Rotarians, I would like to remind the home audience that the number to call in is on your screen, and we welcome any questions. I know the candidates are eager to hear from you. You have a call. All right.
I could. Let's try one more. Huh?
Can you hear? I don't think that was a real question, was it?
I think Lauren should take that one first.
I understand children speak.
In which case, I'd like to provide the studio audience to have questions written down.
I think the caller's back on.
Yes, this is Jesse Chirkov. As someone who cares deeply about the environment, has children, and cares about the future of our planet, I was wondering if Mr. Musk could elaborate a bit about his Facebook post stating the 10 reasons why he hates Earth Day.
Why?
I couldn't hear a word that he said.
I actually,
That's the man.
Excuse
Sorry,
me,
I'm
Mr. Chertoff,
speakerphone.
if you could
I
repeat
was
that
wondering if
question.
Yeah, I was hoping Mr. Maslich could just expand a little bit about the 10 reasons why he hates Earth Day, as someone who cares deeply about our planet for the future, for my children.
I still couldn't hear. 10 reasons of what?
There was a Facebook post Mr. Maslich posted on 10 reasons that he hates Earth Day. And I was wondering if you could just expand a bit on that.
Okay.
Would you like to
Can you hear me,
repeat the
Tammy?
question?
Have him repeat the question.
No, I heard the question. I heard the question.
Well,
And
repeat it for the audience first. Would you like to repeat the question?
the question is, why am I opposed to Earth Day? Okay.
Correct.
I'm opposed to Earth Day because I believe in progress. I believe that people should be able to live their lives in comfort. They should be able to enjoy their wealth that they create, that they earn, without being told to feel guilty about it. If you look at how human beings have survived through history, human beings survive by changing their environment, not by living in it pristinely. I'm sitting here wearing a suit, we're all wearing clothes. We do farming and agriculture, which changes the land. We kill animals, we build buildings, we've got television cameras here. None of those things exist. And all the things that make your life livable in our society don't exist just in nature without man using his reason to shape nature to make his life better. I believe people should make their lives better. I believe in making your own life better. And I don't believe in just sitting there passively and taking the environment as it is. So, and I guess the last thing I'm going to say is, well, I think that it's important that people move forward and use their reason to shape the environment and to make the changes that they want in their lives and not be told by somebody else that they can't change the environment, that they can't change their lives. Thank you.
Ms. Dayton?
as a mom of 2 young children, one of the first things I teach my kids is to respect the world outside the door, is to respect nature, because it is vital to who we are as a community, as a person, as a family, as people. I am absolutely an environmentalist. I would like our world to be as green as possible. And I don't believe that that's telling somebody that they can't live the life that they want to live. I believe in industry, I believe in business, but it must be done with environmental regulations that don't harm others, that don't cause others pain and sickness and cancer. And I believe in Earth Day. I think our children, one of the first things that our schools celebrate is Earth Day, because our children should learn nature, should go to our Tenafly Nature Center and get their hands dirty and experience that, and go to our up-and-coming dog park and interact with animals. Those are vital things for our community. And I am a supporter of Earth Day, and I will just leave it at that.
Mr. Grossman?
It's interesting because one of the classes I teach is in 7th grade social studies, we talk about world cultures, and we start with our planet. And if anybody has ever been to the site, and I suggest you go to this website, it's called worldometers.info. What it's done is take in information from all different sources, United Nations, different major countries, and it's trying to give a real-time estimate of the population growth on our planet, where we are growing by about, I want to say about 10 to 20 tenaflies per day as population. That's a net increase. It also discusses other things, how many people are dying real time from lack of fresh water, how fast we're cutting down forests. It's not that we should not use our environment, it's that we should be aware of what we're leaving to future generations so that they too will share the resources and be aware of what resources will not be available to them, how many days are left of oil, how many days are left of plastic. And I don't see it as telling people they can't use it as much as just be aware so that we can use it wisely. My time is up. No.
Okay. I would like to welcome questions from the audience. If anybody has them written down, I'll take them. Okay, the first question is from Mr. Maslish. In your campaign flyer, you have declared that to fix the school funding formula and cut property taxes. As a councilman in Tenafly, how do you propose to do this?
Well, obviously the council, even if it were 6-0 Republican, or even if I had all 6 votes, I couldn't change the school funding formula. But what I can do is make sure that the people of Tenafly understand what the issue is and understand that the Democratic Party in this state has made a choice, and it's choosing inner cities like Camden and Patterson and Newark over the suburbs like Tenafly and Closter and all the other towns here in Bergen County. We get almost none of the state educational funding, and because of that, our property taxes wind up shooting through the roof. These other inner city schools, these inner cities are getting approximately $30,000 per student. Tenafly, the last I checked, it was a couple $100. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but I don't think a child in Newark or Patterson is worth $30,000, and a child in Tenafly is only worth $200. Now, as a member of the council, I can't change that myself. However, I've worked with Senator Mike Doherty, for instance, who is for fair school funding, which is the basis on which Governor Christie's proposal was made for fair school funding. And fair school funding is equal funding for every child in the state. I don't see how anyone could be against equality. It's going to take a constitutional amendment to change it, but in order to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot, somebody is going to need to speak up and educate the public, and as a member of the council, I can do that. I can work with Senator Doherty, and I can work with others to try and make sure that change comes to Tenafly and our suburban towns are protected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Dayton?
Thank you. Well, this is not what I'm advocating, because I understand the school board is in charge of school funding and the school formula, and as our municipal council, we are not involved in that budget. I will say that Tenafly, having sat on my HSA, I will say Tenafly does receive some TEF grants and have applied for state funding. Whether that level is fair or not is a state level and not a council level issue. I would happily work with our senators and our assemblymen if they were interested in Tenafly's opinion, but I'm not so sure that they're seeking it right now. Our kids here in Tenafly are not all affluent. They come from different backgrounds and different places and different wealth levels. And I know kids receive money for milk and lunch. I know kids receive aid. I know kids receive money for special disabilities. And I want to make sure that that would stay in our community, but that would be as a resident, because as council, I don't have a say in applying for those grants. That's the school board. I hope that the school board will continue those good programs for our students. And I feel very lucky to live in Tenafly, where our schools are so strong, which keeps our property values high. Thank you.
Mr. Grossman?
You know, after this, I understand that there's going to be tape messages from the Board of Education, and I do want to hear what they have to say about school funding. That's important, and I hope everybody continues to listen so that they hear what those candidates are saying. As a candidate for Tenafly Town Council, one of the frustrating parts is that, but the reality of New Jersey is that less than 1/4 of the municipal budget, of the property tax is municipal budget. Approximately 3/4 comes from a combination of the Board of Ed and the county. That means that for every property owner who has, let's say, a $20,000 tax bill, less than $5,000 of that goes towards the town. That's for garbage pickup, that's for leaf collection, that's for police protection, new fire trucks, maintaining the parks where our kids are involved in all these sports, snow removal, street repaving, the list goes on and on. The state constitution, obviously through both Republican and Democratic administrations over the years, has not changed. So there must have been wisdom in 1948 when they passed that most recent constitution. That has remained intact. If somebody comes up with a great formula and wants to change it, or wants to change the Supreme Court's rulings of fair and equal education, more power to them.
I would like to do a quick rebuttal if I could. First, I want to just address something that Lauren said. Lauren said that she's not sure that our legislators, our local legislators, even want to hear anything on this issue. And I think she's right about that.
I was making a joke. I was just making a joke.
Okay. Well, I think the joke is a valid point. I think that Senator Weinberg, Assemblywoman Huddle and Johnson, they don't want to hear about this issue because they are Democrats and they are working for the cities, not for our local community, even though they represent us. And we need a different voice on the council who can reach out to Republicans around the state who do see this issue and who do want to work on behalf of the suburbs. I've worked with Mike Doherty. He's the champion of fair school funding, and as Jeff said, Jeff asked, what's a better formula? I can't think of a more fair, better formula than equal funding for every child. Every child is valuable in the state. Every child is worth the same. No child is more important or less important than any other child. Equal funding is fair, it's right, and it's something that we need to bring to New Jersey. The Democratic Party is not willing to do it. I'm willing to work with Republicans to bring that issue here to the suburbs and work to get that goal enacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to rebut that? No. Okay.
I will just add that that was a joke about the senators, and I have spoken with Senator Weinberg and Assemblyman and Women Johnson and Huddle, and I do believe they are invested in Tenafly. I do believe they have our communities back. And if there was a school issue that our Board of Education raised with them, I do believe that they would open their doors and hear the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I have some more questions from the audience. And this question is for Ms. Dayton. And the gentleman, Ryan Walker, mentions, I am a soccer coach for my son's second grade soccer and basketball teams in Tenafly. Streets and recreation are important to my family. How would you focus on Tenafly's recreation?
Thank you for the question. I agree with you. I think Tenafly recreation for our families is one of the best aspects that attract home buyers to our town and make our residents part of a community. My children, I have two girls, they are both part of Tenafly recreation programs, and I think one of the wonderful things that our town does is to maintain our fields and our green spaces so that recreation can go forward. Our parent volunteers are working tirelessly for our children all around town in every sport to get people and teams together so that residents can meet and families can come together and children can learn sports and be healthy and green. I absolutely would back any measure, within reason, to keep our programs at the same level of quality they are now. And I hope that our municipal field returfing project, which is going forward, will help improve on this as well. Thank you.
Do you have anything to say?
Well, one of the problems in Tenafly, having served on Little League board and having coached other sports as well, is we lack space in Tenafly for all our teams. We're constantly competing. And I think that's something that we need community input to try and resolve. It's not just that every sport has turned into an all-season sport. It used to be that soccer was in the fall, basketball winter, baseball spring. End of story. Very little competition for field space. Soccer goes into the spring now. Baseball, there's fall ball. And we've added lacrosse. So one of the things we need to do is look to see how we can balance and utilize all our fields efficiently. And I think that's going to take town input. I think it's going to involve the Recreation Commission, which already exists, to figure out how to make that more efficient rather than less over time.
Thank you. I have another question, and this
Do I get to address that question? I didn't get a chance to answer.
Can I add just one more thing?
Hop to it.
Real quickly. One of the great things about our sports program is feeding into the high school, and I was happy to hear Ed say that he has a 12-year-old who plays football. We need him on the football team. We haven't been doing very well the last few years. Please keep encouraging him to get better and better. We need to win. We need to take the Turkey Bowl in a couple of years, so keep at it.
He loves football, so I think that's in the cards. Yes, I'm a sports dad. Yes, I love the recreational sports that we have in Tenafly. I want to keep them. I want to make them better. I want to encourage all children in our community to play. As I said earlier, though, just because something is good doesn't mean I'm unqualifiedly for more spending on it, doing more for it. Yes, it's a good idea. Yes, I like it, but you can't divorce spending from taxes. You can't divorce spending from potential borrowing or bonding. We need to make sure that we can afford all the things that we want. And I want rec sports. I love rec sports. I travel with the team. There's a marked difference between the enthusiasm for Tenafly parents as compared to other towns that are around here. You can see the enthusiasm, and it's great. It's great when we're home. It's great when we're away. I'm all for funding and supporting our rec programs, but every dollar that we spend on that council comes out of property taxes, and we need to be wary of that. We need to remember that and make sure that every dollar we spend is a wisely spent dollar, and it's something that needs to be spent, and that the taxpayers of this town are willing to spend and will be proud to have spent. So, thank you.
Mr. Maslin, I have another question for you. Your flyers focus partly on parking and traffic. Specifically, how will you address and improve both?
Well, again, I didn't come here with a list of demands and this is what we're going to do and it's going to be my way or the highway. The town is responsible to make sure that the roads are paved. The town is responsible to make sure that parking is okay. It's responsible the town is responsible to make sure that any new things that come to the town aren't going to increase traffic too dramatically to make problems for the residents or for the local businesses. How am I going to fix it? I don't know that it needs to be fixed, first of all. And second of all, insofar as things need to be done, I'm going to listen and I'll respond to the people that I talk to. I'm going to talk to local business owners. I'm going to talk to local residents. I'm going to make myself available. And if somebody thinks that we need to, deal with a pothole on a road, we're going to deal with a pothole. At the council meeting last night, there was a discussion about a sidewalk near a school. If that needs to be done, that's something we can consider. Again, always with keeping in mind that property taxes fund all the things that we do. But yes, it's the council's job to make sure that the roads are paved, to make sure that people can park and get to their businesses and get to where they need to go. And I will do whatever needs to be done and read any studies and commission any studies if we need to. That's how we'll deal with it.
Thank you. Ms. Dayton?
Thank you. Well, the first thing I would encourage absolutely is support behind the Greenway trails, because I do believe biking and biking to work and biking to town is one of the best things we can do to alleviate both traffic and parking. So if that project gets underway, I think that is a huge step into reducing the amount of cars on our street. So that's the number one. Number two, I think that our traffic patterns and our traffic lights need to be studied, and from what I understand, our Chamber of Commerce has already worked on this issue. And I thank them for that, because what's happening is that our traffic lights are actually backing our traffic up onto County Road and the intersection of Dean, and they're not allowing our cars to come into our town and use our business district, which needs to happen to revitalize that district. So the flow of our traffic should absolutely be continued to be studied. That Chamber of Commerce study should be used and looked at by our council. And the third thing that I'm seeing is that we have many municipal lots in town, but not everyone knows about them, and there's not easy access from the lots to the bus depots, to the bus spaces, and to the center of our town. There's some strange backdoor alleyways and things that aren't lit, and pathways that just really aren't conducive to a business traveler or a family in tow, or a person who wants to go into New York City for the day. So for me, I think that we should absolutely be making our residents more aware of this situation, that our municipal lots exist, where their locations are, and how to get better pathways from the center of our town to these lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gosselin?
One of the hardest parts, I think, of being on town council is going to be anticipating unanticipated consequences. And we saw this with parking a number of years ago. The town council many years ago decided to have permit paid parking downtown, which sounded like a good idea. What it did was it forced many residents in town to say, why should I pay for parking? I will just follow the bus route, and I will park on side streets along the bus route, which include streets like South Woodland Park Drive, Downey Drive, Bliss, all the streets along there, Elm, Oak. And then the residents started to complain, I can't get to my driveway because everybody is parking on my street. So the next step, limit parking on the side streets to no more than 3 hours, which has now forced everybody to park on Engle, which they never used to do. Engle has become dangerous because anybody pulling out of those side streets now can't see around the parked cars. If there are trucks parked on both sides, it becomes very narrow, and you cannot easily get by there without endangering your life. So they have now started to cut back on the amount of parking there, which is now just pushing the problem away from downtown. Where we want people is downtown, not moving further and further away. So that is the challenge, is to listen to ideas and then say, okay, how is this going to impact down the road, literally? And that's a challenge that I actually look forward to.
Thank you. I have another question from Mr. Mazik. On your website, you state proof that leftism is a mental disorder and fascism is a left-wing philosophy. How are you going to represent the Tenafly residents if most of them are what you call a mental disorder?
I didn't think that those are the kinds of questions that we're going to talk about tonight. I don't think that I'm going to dignify that question with an answer. I'm going to represent every person in Tenafly if I'm elected. I'm going to listen. I'm going to respond to you. And if you don't like me, then don't vote for me.
Anyone want to rebut that?
I'd like to say something. I do want to say that I'm proud that our city has become a welcoming city. I am proud of our council for doing that initiative. I do believe in this day and age that acceptance of others is the utmost important to form a community. And in communities where people are left out alone, you have tragedies like Las Vegas. So I do think in today's day and age, that our backgrounds and our history are important, and our shared community is as well important. And we should get to know our neighbors, and we should get to know our residents, and we should come together from all very different backgrounds and religions and races. And I do not, and I hope that that was a joke on your Facebook page, I do not hope that any of our residents would treat each other with racism and bigotry and so on. Thank you.
Mr. Grossman?
I sort of agree that I'm not going to really dignify it with a response in this particular instance. The fact remains, we have potholes in town. Potholes do not ask, are you Democrat or Republican? They do not ask, are you liberal or conservative? They need to be filled just the same. So, and I am sure that even when we talk about the council being all Democratic, it's not a monolithic thing at a local level. It is a diversity of opinion and diversity of views. And again, potholes don't really ask that question. So I'm just hoping that the voters of Tenafly choose people who are looking to do the best to maintain, as I said in my opening statement, the high level of service for our town without being a budget buster. I want my kids to be able to move here one day if that's their decision and not have to look at the property tax and say, I can't do this. Thank you.
Okay, this is my last question. It's addressed to Ms. Dayton, and it said, as Mr. Masler stated in his opening comments, his election to the council will address diversity on the Borough Council. Does Mr. Masler have a point regarding council diversity? And that's for you to answer.
Thank you. Well, I'm not sure what Mr. Maslis was referring to, but I will tell you that as a diversity, at this level, I don't think who you voted for as our last presidential election comes down to filling the pothole, as Jeff has said. I think at our local level, we are looking to represent those residents that live here, and I do. There is a lack of school moms or younger families on our council right now who speak for both their involvement with their children here and the resources that we need, and are also part of the school districts that the council doesn't oversee but works with in joint use committees. Right now, there is a wonderful woman on our council. I hope to be the second woman on our council, and I hope to represent so many of the families moving in to our community. Thank you.
Mr. Grossman?
I can't add to what Lauren really said, and I'm not going to second guess as to what Mr. Masler meant when he said at the beginning about diversity, so it would be easier for me to answer that if he explains. But I think we do have a tremendously diverse council, including different political viewpoints, different sensibilities, and representing different ethnicities, religion, you name it. Adding two white guys to it is not going to really make it that much more diverse.
Well, Mr. Mathling, would you like to speak to that?
Well, the question asked whether I had a point, and yes, I think I absolutely have a point. I think that I'm a smart guy, and I think that that was a good point to have made. By diversity, I mean differences of opinion, different views. Lauren talked about welcoming people of all religions, all faiths, all races. We all believe that. What we don't have on the council is a single Republican. We don't have anybody offering a different point of view than the Democratic Party's views. We need a different voice who can reach out to different people across the state, especially on issues that cut across local lines and that impact localities based on state decisions. And we need somebody who's willing to talk to the other side and willing to reach out to the other side, the Republican side, and try and make changes that need to be made to protect the suburbs like Tenafly. And the Democrats are not doing that. As a Republican, I can reach out to people that Democrats on the council can't or won't. And I think I would be a very valuable addition on the council for that reason alone. I can reach out to people that nobody else there can or does, and that's what I'll do if I'm elected.
Thank you. One last question from a call-in person. Mr. Robert Marks, would you like to give your question? Do you hear it?
We can make up a question.
Can you speak louder? Can you get the question? Mr. Marks, would you like to repeat that question, please? Okay, in which case, we will get a final summation from each one of the candidates, and that will be limited to 1 minute, and we'll start with Mr. Grossman.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have this discussion. As I said in my opening statement, I grew up in town. I am looking forward to providing a town that others can move their families into and be proud of this community. I am looking to keep property taxes in check. I'm proud of the job the council has done, monolithic or not. They have kept tax increase, the town council has kept the municipal tax increase to under the rate of inflation. And I would intend to keep it going down, closer to zero. We really should not be raising taxes unless there are costs that are just beyond our control. We need to continue, though, to provide the services this town has become known for and that residents expect. So that is what I would do. I am running for town council. I'm not running for state government. I'm not running for Board of Ed. I'm not running for Congress or any of the others. So some of the issues that seem a little loftier, and I am willing to reach across the aisle and talk to anybody, because as I said before, potholes don't care what your ideology or what your party label is. They need to be addressed, as do our fields, our streets, our leaf pickup, our police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dayton?
Thank you. On behalf of my children, my husband, and myself, thank you for the opportunity to come here. I am proud to be part of this community. I am proud to have moved to Tenafly and put roots down here for my family. And those roots, I hope, come from the people who are here before me and the homeowners that will come after me. And as a councilwoman, I hope to serve all of Tenafly's residents, and when I say all, I mean all. Across the aisles, I have reached out on both sides, Democratic and Republican. I do not want my children growing up in a society of isolated households. I want them to know their community, their green spaces, their parks, their schools, their neighbors. My goals as councilwoman will be to continue the hard work of our current council, to maintain our good quality of life that we have here, and I hope to continue to build upon that for our future growth. Thank you.
Mr. Maslin.
I want to thank the Rotary Club. I want to thank you, Mayor Heyman. I want to thank everybody who's here. I want to thank everybody who's watching. I want to thank the questions that we got, even the ones that were tough on me. I think that I've tried to make a distinction between me and my two respective opponents. I think I've offered you a difference. I know that a lot of people who are listening to me now may not have voted for a Republican before in your life. I'm asking you to keep an open mind, to be true to your beliefs in diversity and in having an open mind, because I think I offer some very valuable things to the town of Tenafly. I think that I can protect and preserve our property values. I think that I've shown tonight that I'm going to protect your property tax bill. And I think that I'd be a good addition to the council. If it's a 5-1 council, I still can't outvote the other 5, but I can give you a different voice. I can bring a new perspective that just isn't there right now. I'm asking for your vote on November 7th. Please vote for Ed Maslish for Tenafly Borough Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've all three been excellent candidates, and I want to thank as well the audience, which has been very patient, and particularly the Tenafly High School Media Center staff, which has been very supportive, and also remind you that immediately after this broadcast, there will be a short portion on the screen for the Board of Education candidates, and I hope you all stay to listen to that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Nice job.
On behalf of the Tenafly Rotary Club, I'd like to thank the three candidates for being here tonight and sharing your views with the audience, both on television and here. A very special thanks to Sophie Hyman for the excellent job she did. I think we should give her a hand. To you, our audience, thank you. To John Warms, a Rotary member who was responsible for putting this together, thank you, John. To David DiGregorio and Mark Fleming and Steve Moger of the staff here at the media room in this great facility, we thank them for having us. Remember, you have a Rotary Club in Tenafly, and we're here to serve. Thank you for coming.
Remember that our system works because everyone votes, or many people vote. And we urge you to remember to vote on November 7th. This year is an important year for the state of New Jersey and for Tenafly in particular. There will be the governor's position will be on the ballot, 3 freeholders, all of our assembly people and Congress and senators, and in the borough 2 council seats and 3 Board of Education seats. So there are important people to elect this year, and we urge you all to come out on November 7th and vote. If you need assistance in finding out the ballot place that you will be voting at, or if you're eligible to vote, contact the Tenafly Borough Clerk at 201-568-6100. And if you need to know where your polling place is, in addition, you can also find it on the sample ballot, which will be mailed to you. So again, this is John Worms. Thank you very much.